Yes, in case you're wondering why our background is different, well, we're here and we hope that you are looking forward to the weekend because it is Friday. And so let's start our day today by expressing our thanks to all the Cignal subscribers, those of you who support Cignal TV, watch channels 8 and 250, particularly One News. And for those of you who continue to watch us and join us here on Agenda, maraming salamat po. And of course, to those who watch us on Facebook and YouTube, the same amount of gratitude because without your support, Agenda will not be successful as it is. And by the way, allow me to just reiterate, while the program title is Agenda, the program concept stands as a platform for many people and organizations who are doing a lot of good things, a lot of positive things, but who don't have a platform or don't get enough coverage. So today, we will be doing the same thing as we feature a young, very good-looking, very courageous, and very positive individual. He is French and he is also Indonesian. Pwedeng mag-artista, and we will be talking to him about his activities and his life passion regarding plastic pollution. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We will discuss that in a while. In the meantime, let's go to our daily starter. For those of you who, like me, tend to get really obsessive, compulsive, or medyo napoposes sa ating mga hobbies or our business or things we like doing, it is a reminder, particularly those of you who are Christians, the daily starter is something that really spoke to me recently. If you chase Jesus as hard as you chase the things you want, you'll wind up with more than you'll ever need. Let me repeat that. If you chase Jesus as hard as you chase the things you think you want, you'll wind up with more than you'll ever need. Okay, so allow me to reiterate, you know, when I embark on a project, when I do certain things, I really go crazy. Sometimes I go overboard. And I'm sure many of you just become so passionate about what you do that sometimes we forget other things. And it's a reminder that we must always put our faith before our vision, our relationship with God before our passion. And when we do, God and Jesus Christ will take care of all of that. I'm not being a pastor here, pero I can tell you one thing. This week, I got support for a particular activity because I chose to do that. Okay, let's now go to the front page of the Philippine Star. And today, November 4, 2022, the headline is Bantag seen as one of the Lapid slave brains. Okay, one of the lawyers of the family of slain radio broadcaster Percival Mabasa or Perry Lapid said they are looking at suspended Bucor Director General Gerald Bantag as one of the masterminds in the murder of Percy Lapid. Okay, so ayan po. And today, please monitor the news because there will be a meeting, if not a press conference at the Department of Justice, wherein DOJ Secretary Remulla and the family of Percy Lapid, aka Mabasa, will be sharing information. And it is expected that charges will be filed and it will be exposed as to who are the masterminds or the mastermind behind the contract killing of Percy Lapid. Okay, now, at the top of the front page in the header, Paeng death toll jumps to 150. From 94, it is now listed at 150 fatalities, people who died from the mudslides, landslides, and floods that Typhoon Paeng brought last weekend. And there is still an estimated 36 people still missing. So, yun po, below that header, we have that photo of the barangay, particular barangay Cusyong, Dato Odin, Sinsuat, Maguindanao del Norte, where search and retrieval operations have been suspended because the mud has hardened after several days of sun. So that's it. They won't be able to continue the search and retrieval because they're going to have to bring in heavy equipment. Okay, now, prices of agricultural commodities rise amid storm damage, still related to Typhoon Paeng and previous typhoons that hit the Philippines. The Department of Agriculture announced yesterday in the Laging Handa briefing with Malacanang that vegetables and other farm produce increased by 25 to 30 pesos per kilo. Unfortunately, food in the Philippines is now more expensive than some countries in Europe, okay? That is the sad reality we are now facing. Good news, masking no longer mandatory in workplaces. Dole Secretary Benny Laguesma announced that wearing of face masks will no longer be mandatory in workplaces except for hospitals, laboratories, similar health-related facilities, dialysis clinics, and in public transportation facilities, especially mga terminals, bus lines, etc. And among drivers and conductors, you still have to wear face masks. Okay, that big photo in the center of the Philippine Star front page is a photograph of President Bongbong Marcos witnessing the signing of the Metro Manila Subway Project contract for Quezon Avenue, Anonas, and Camp Aguinaldo stations, which was signed by Secretary Jaime Jimmy Bautista and Sumitomo Mitsui Construction Managing Executive Officer Hitoshi Yamaji at Malacanang yesterday. A lot of familiar faces there, and we do hope that that program goes through without any hitch, delays, para yung mga mananakay may masasakyan ng modern trains. Okay. And lower in the photo, in the front page of the Philippine Star, sad news, as often happens historically. 8 people were hurt in Bulacan fireworks explosion. In spite of the many similar incidents in the past, in spite of the so-called health safety protocols of the BFP and the PNP, ayun po, another fireworks explosion in Barangay Pulong, Buhangin in Santa Maria, Bulacan. Okay. Meanwhile, the Department of Education warns personnel versus disparaging agency. A memorandum has been issued by the Department of Education addressed to its personnel, to its officers and personnel and employees that they should be careful about their social media posts, their public statements, and any statements that could be misconstrued or construed as insult, disrespect, disparaging the Department of Education. And this was countered by organizations in the education sector as an infringement or a threat to freedom of expression and the right for redress or to express your complaints or dissatisfaction with the government or with the agency. So this could end up being in court if for some reason someone is charged with disparaging the DepEd. Okay. Ayan po, medyo magiging sensitive issue yan. Meanwhile, businessman Joey Concepcion and founder of Go Negosyo has called for the deputization or for the DOH to deputize hospitals for bivalent vaccination. Concepcion said that these hospitals could be allowed to purchase or acquire the bivalent vaccines and be allowed to offer them as a service and products to customers, aside from what the government will be doing in their acquisition of about 10 million doses. So yun po, the good news is bivalent vaccine is now a reality. The question is, how soon will it be rolled out in a country where many people don't even have the third and fourth vaccine shot? Okay. Meanwhile, Secretary Erwin Tulfo of the DSWD, or Department of Social Welfare and Development, has reassigned two DSW executives in the Calabarzon region based on the complaint of a Mayor Dino Reyes Chua of Noveleta, Cavite, who claimed that two executives of the Calabarzon DSWD were withholding the release and delaying the distribution of much needed relief goods and food packages in his area. Okay, the two executives have been reassigned to the office of Secretary Tulfo while an investigation is being conducted. Last but not the least, the Philippine Postal Corporation, okay, and SM Mart Incorporated will bring the post office closer to shoppers when SM Makati's newly renovated Servicio opens this month. Shoppers will be able to conveniently and quickly mail letters, express packages, buy stamps, and other philatelic products, okay, and even postal ID. So there we have it. There goes all the news on the front page of the Philippines. Now let's go to our guest for today. Like I said, he's young, he's good looking, but even better, he dedicated his skills and talents to bring focus to a national problem on marine pollution. But it is not in the Philippines. It was in Indonesia, but because of all of his activities, so many people nominated him for awards, and he was recently selected as one of the Ramon Magsaysay awardees for 2022. Let's roll out the video introduction. Gab, roll out the Betamax.
Gary Bencheghib is the 2022 Ramon Magsaysay Awardee for Emergent Leadership. He was recognized for his fight against marine plastic pollution. A graduate of documentary filmmaking at the New York Film Academy, Bencheghib uses video and technology to forward his social advocacy.
Okay, good morning, Gary. I know you have a very tight schedule, so I'll try to bring everything to speed. How did you feel when you found out that you had been nominated and won the Ramon Magsaysay Award in the Philippines, knowing you are in Indonesia?
Good morning, Cito. Definitely, amazing. This has been probably one of the biggest honors of my life. And not really expecting this prize. It's only been an inspiration to continue doing the work that we're doing for plastic pollution and looking at ways of expanding the project outside of Indonesia, potentially very, very soon in the Philippines, as plastic pollution is not just happening here, but it's a global problem.
Okay, now why plastic pollution? People would say, come on, Gary, there's so many other pressing problems. And how did you get into this? Of course, you went to New York Film Academy, is it? And then, of course, you have the talents. But why plastic pollution?
So, the island of Bali is quite known to be one of the world's, most desirable destinations, making it on top of CNN's list as, the best holiday destination in the world. But, you cannot look away from plastics here on the island. It's polluting every beach, every river, every rice field. And over the years, with overpopulation, more and more construction sites being a tourism island, we couldn't really look away from it. So this plastic pollution journey is actually started 14 years ago when I was 14 years old, seeing, our home island getting covered in plastics every rainy season. That is really when you see rivers being flushed down with plastic pollution, as much as it happens in the Philippines. And I think that, more and more we're learning that plastics is bad for our health. We know that plastic is in our bloodstream. Plastic can cause cancer. Now it's been found in breath milk. So, back then when we started, I think it was just a visual of seeing how bad plastic is. Most fish have plastics already ingested in their stomachs. And whenever we eat fish, we potentially have, the means of having plastics as well. So it has ruined every coastline around the world now, and it has to be addressed.
Okay, but Gary, what are you most into? The fight against plastic pollution, or being a videographer, documentary filmmaker, etc.? Because those are two different directions.
Yes, so our work, is twofold. One, we want to bring plastic pollution to front page news, create as much awareness as possible, create shocking visuals so the world wakes up to this plastic pandemic. Yeah. And second, we have a non-profit foundation based here in Indonesia to clean rivers. 80% of plastics in the ocean actually come from rivers and streams. So we felt that rivers are the perfect connection point between life on land and the ocean. Here in Bali, when you ask, where's the plastic coming from on the beaches, people often point to another island. But the truth is that, if we can stop plastics in our rivers before it goes to the ocean, then we can massively reduce the impact that it has on our environment. So we've been very focused around developing simple technologies like floating barriers, so plastics doesn't end up in the ocean. So, our barriers are very simple, made from local materials, using PVC pipes and metal frames. And every single day, our team collects the barriers. Now we have a network of 200 barriers across Bali and Java, the island of Java. And we predict that over the next 2 to 3 years, we'll have to place a lot more in order to significantly reduce plastics that go out into the ocean. Every single second, one garbage truck full of plastic pollution enters our ocean. Every single second. Imagine that. So there's still so much work to be done. And, we need to focus on the global south where plastics is used every single day.
I'm watching that video of that, I think it was a young girl being covered by all the plastic and muck that was washing up on the beach. And that can be scary. I haven't seen it that bad, but undoubtedly that is very bad. Now, looking at you on cam, I mean, sorry, okay, but you're a white man, okay? A white man in championing a social, a global problem in Indonesia. That could ruffle a lot of feathers. People could, hey, it's like, this is Indonesia. We'll take care of our problem. That's usually the reaction of people in Asia. We're Asians. You're the white man. We'll solve our problem. How has the reception been for your video? I heard that you have a series of videos, a 9-part series on plastic pollution, and it has caused quite a stir that it even reached the president of Indonesia.
Yeah, so it's definitely been a challenge, but I've been based here in Indonesia for the last 20 years. I speak Indonesian, I speak Balinese. As much as I would love to be Indonesian, I was just born from French parents, but I do consider myself, Indonesian. This is my home country, and I'm going to do everything that I can to protect it. And because, I do speak the language, that has allowed us, more of an open invitation to allow us to just help. I think, plastic pollution is a global problem, and it's going to require everybody to jump on board, to join the fight. And what's so beautiful about it is that, we can all do individually our own actions, because it really starts from reducing our plastic consumption.
Okay, but how did all of this begin? Because when I read your profile, I thought you were essentially a filmmaker who decided to focus on plastic pollution. But listening to you as we are doing this interview, you apparently have a small army of people who are actually doing something about the problem. You have a floating collection mechanisms. You have people on canoes paddling and all of this, and walking the beaches to do something about it. How did you get involved in this, and why plastic?
Yes, so our journey started 14 years ago when I was 14 years old, just seeing how bad, plastic pollution really is in Indonesia, wanting to do something about it as a young kid, just seeing the over-accumulation of it, our beaches being trashed. And so it started actually as a cleanup organization. Back then we were called Make a Change Bali. And then we felt that, using media, using social media, using filmmaking could only help address the problem and create bigger audiences to really fight this problem. So that's where I went to film school, studied filmmaking as a tool, as a weapon for change. But ultimately, after, posting a lot of videos, doing a lot of series online, I was seeing that, our underground impact was not real. Like, yes, you can inspire people with videos, the world can see the work, but ultimately, I felt that there was a disconnect, and that I ultimately needed to get back dirty and start cleaning up, just because there's just so much. I think over the next, 2-3 years, globally, we're doing a lot of disaster relief. Cleanup is not the solution. We have to stop plastics at the source where it can still be managed. A lot of people may not know where their plastic goes. People typically, throw it in the back of their houses or burn it. And that is the root cause of the problem. We need a lot more infrastructure being built, and we need to ultimately have a lot more awareness globally on this problem. So that's where Sungai Watch, our latest project, that really started in the midst of COVID, just seeing the need of cleaning up our rivers here in Bali is now growing into a global movement where, we really want to scale impact. We want to really scale upcycling of plastics, creating data as to, where this plastics come from. A big part of our work is actually looking, once we collect all of this trash, we operate 6 facilities where we upcycle the trash that we collect into things like furniture, chairs, tables, shelves. But we also look into who the biggest polluters are behind the plastics. We cannot do this alone.
Yeah, so it's not just collecting or making noises about plastic pollution. I was, attracted by the byproducts from plastic, because that was always the issue in the beginning, that okay, we can collect the plastic, but what do we do with the plastic garbage because it's not biodegradable? But apparently, there in Indonesia, you were showing a film of plastic panels. I think they were even using it for straw mats or something. And you mentioned furniture. Was this also part of your group's activity, or did private sector investors come in and saw the potential for profit?
Yes, so we've been over the last 2 years. We've just been collecting so much. We've now collected 700,000 kilos of plastic. Every single day, our team collects around 3,000 kilos, and that accumulates over time. And so the number one question has always been, what do we do with this waste? Now that we've collected everything, can it be used as a resource? Once we collect, we sort it into 20 different types of plastics. Then after that, we clean, depending on the type of plastic, there's different washing mechanisms. We then shred, and then we have a hot press machine to create sheets out of it. Sheets are like a raw material. They can be different thicknesses, anywhere between like a couple millimeters to quite chunky, 3 centimeters, 4 centimeters, and it's essentially a 1 by 1 meter sheet that we can then cut with a lasering machine, and then really create anything out of recycled plastics.
You can actually use it for wall panelings for houses. Are they safe for human use? Because like when I saw those 1 by 1 meter panels, I was saying, all of these indigent families, these poor families that don't have nice homes, they can use that as a wall panelings, and it's waterproof.
Yeah, I would not necessarily use it directly on a day-to-day perspective. It's still plastic, and I think that the scientific community is now starting to see how bad, just in general, plastic is for our health. One of the bad things is that over time, plastic breaks down into microplastics that the human body can ingest. Plastics is polluting our air, our water. We are literally breathing and ingesting plastics. And, the scientific community is starting to see that the more plastics out there, basically our planet is plasticized. So the furniture that we want to create is long lasting, things like bins, maybe a side table, not things that we're going to be touching on an everyday basis or breathing in on an everyday basis. So we do not recommend building necessarily houses where we'll be breathing in, but maybe, decorative art, smaller pieces that...
or park benches, park tables, etc.
Yeah, or like a shelf. Those things are okay because we're not touching it on an everyday basis with our bare skin. So I think it's definitely very, very interesting field. There's a lot of possibilities as what we can do with the material. Basically, anything made out of plastic today can potentially be made out of recycled plastic. And as we know, plastics come from the petroleum industry. So we do not want to no longer take the world's resources when there's so much readily available. If you look at, just all of the plastics that is out there polluting our rivers, polluting the ocean, it's potentially $1 trillion industry. And so I think that, now what we're seeing is as we are starting to collect a lot of it and have built these processes to upcycle it, it can be a very, very wealthy industry that can actually be profitable. So I think we have to change our perspective of plastic being this secondary resource that doesn't have any value. It actually does, and once you actually figure out how to properly upcycle it, you can actually make money, and you can actually clean the world with that money. So that's very interesting perspective. I mean, this is so much of an education for our viewers, because most of us think that, hey, if we just collect the plastic, if we recycle the plastic, we can upcycle the plastic and use them for many things. But at the end of the day,
plastic is still plastic. It still emits or gives off certain fumes. It degenerates over time. So it is not something you should be having indoors. Although the thought that, I don't know about you, Gary, but I know so many houses in the Philippines where you walk into their kitchens or in their storage rooms, it's all in plastic. So this is going to scare some of our viewers. But let's go for a quick break, because to your point about just stopping it at the source, what other alternatives, what are the findings that you've discovered regarding this? And of course, your life. How has this campaign, this film productions, changed your life? We'll go for a quick break, 1 minute break, and we'll be right back here on Agenda. There is never enough time for great interviews and great guests, and the same goes for our guest today, Gary Bencheghib, I think, who is based in Indonesia. He is a French Indonesian, and he is one of the Ramon Magsaysay awardees for 2022, and he is prominent for his video projects or work that focuses on plastic pollution. Now, Gary, we were talking about upcycling, recycling, but you pointed out that as far as plastics are concerned, the perfect solution is really to stop its production and its use. Now, how is that coming along as far as Indonesia is concerned?
Yeah, I think globally in the next decade, we're set to triple our plastic production. And that's, terrifying, knowing that this material is still not very managed. And, around 12 million tons of it ends up in our ocean every single year. And that's why the reference, of one garbage truck full of plastic pollution entering our ocean every second. Indonesia, has a roadmap to ban all single-use plastics by 2030. And, is working on managing and, putting tax on companies that actually produce the plastic to encourage, extended producer responsibility. In this entire plastic sphere, who is really to blame? Is it the producers that are actually producing the packaging, or is it the consumers, that have no option? And, the best alternative, there's none, because everything is wrapped ultimately, in traditional markets is wrapped around plastic. So I think it's twofold in that in order to have real change happen, it's going to need a massive combination of collaborations between the corporations that are ultimately producing the plastics, as well as governments to properly regulate, in order not to have waves of like that. In Bali, we need to think about our plastic production.
Okay, now when they say in Indonesia that we will ban the use of single-use plastics by 2030, is the culture and the politics such that when they say so, it gets done? Because sad to say, we had that scenario here in the Philippines. There, just before COVID-19, you couldn't get plastic bags anymore at the grocery, supermarkets, etc. And people always told you, sir, did you bring a bag? Because if you didn't bring a bag, you're going to have to buy a cloth bag. We don't give plastic bags anymore. And now it's all over the place again. And I'm saying, what happened here? What about Indonesia? When they say so, do they do it?
Yes, so we've already seen, about hundreds of local bans on single-use plastics, at city levels, at, regional levels, provincial levels, and, some are more effective than others. It's all about proper implementation and follow-up. But ultimately, here on the island of Bali, for example, we have a ban on single-use plastic bags, straws, and styrofoam, and of which I think in the midst of COVID, in a global pandemic, when people are really looking at, the relationship of how to buy products like food, what else are you supposed to wrap your plastics, especially, in maybe a fish market where there's no proper alternative than plastic. So I think, that's where our work comes in handy, of really looking at the data side. Once we collect trash from rivers or from coastlines or from mangroves, once we sort it, every single day we collect data as to understand, what type of plastic are the most prevalent in our environment, but ultimately, who are the biggest brand? So we've built, a full-on brand audit mechanism. It works quite similarly to, your local mart, where we have, a scanner that scans the QR codes at the back of every single piece of sachets or branded packaging.
Mm-hmm.
So we have an internal database of about 30,000 products. And then every single year, we'll publish who the biggest polluters are. So, in Indonesia, Danone, they have one of the biggest water brands, Aqua, and they come out as the number top polluter. And so then we can have a conversation with those brands in order to, challenge them, but ultimately, work towards finding more sustainable packaging.
Okay, so what's in the works for you in the immediate future? Because I'm down to my last few minutes with you, Gary. But really, congratulations! I admire you for your grit and tenacity, because that is a long haul kind of commitment, and it takes decades for people to change bad habits. But what's in the immediate future for you?
Well, we're very, very excited about, the festival season of Magsaysay Award, and looking at the potential of expanding to the Philippines, setting up some of our barriers out there, and, really looking at helping, some communities that may have plastic pollution problems. So if you're, thank you for Cito for this amazing platform today. If you are around and you see plastics in rivers, please do get in touch with us, as we are doing a full-on mapping of the region, and we would love to help, the country to see, how we can start to clean it up.
I'm sure you kind of reacted that I was kind of laughing or giggling here, because when you say, if you see plastic, I think we should reword it. If you can find places without plastic, let's give them a trophy. Because even here in the Philippines, I think it is an Asian problem. As you pointed out, it's a global problem. Plastic is everywhere. And until we put a stop to it, we are going to have headaches that you pointed out. But anyway, Gary, thank you very much for your time today. And mind you, this won't be the last, because the minute you start sending your team here to the Philippines, we'd like to have them on board. And if you yourself come over, then we can talk some more about this campaign, because I'm with you. We have to stop at least the production of single-use plastic, because we have featured that problem here on Agenda so many times pre-COVID, and now that stupid thing is back like a curse. Thank you very much, Gary, and congratulations for being one of the awardees of the Ramon Magsaysay 2022 awards. Have a good day, my friend.
Thank you, Cito. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Take care.
Okay, that's Gary Bencheghib, and we hope to keep on featuring him in the future because the fight for single-use plastic and plastic pollution is a real thing, ladies and gentlemen. Your every little effort is going to make a big difference because there are 110 million Filipinos. Imagine how much garbage, how much pollution we generate. Every baby generates plastic pollution in diapers, and every adult generates even more. We'll be right back after this quick break. Please stay tuned to Agenda. Okay, welcome back to the program Agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, and joining us on this second half of the program, or on the last quarter of the program, is a friend of the program, Cebu City Mayor Michael Rama. Mayor, good morning sa imo.
Good morning, Cito, and the friend of the Beltran from your father's beginning.
Okay, quick series of questions just to update us on Cebu City. Cebu City under the governor has always been in the radar as far as COVID is concerned, protocols. How is the situation in Cebu now?
We're pretty well good. And we operate under one Cebu Island. And the leader is the governor.
Okay, now under one Cebu Island or in Cebu City where you are the mayor, May, we know there is now the pronouncements of no mandatory mask wearing in workplaces. You can now go around without masks. Has there been any reports of increases in cases, or is everything good?
I think in God we trust. We're managing. And we have been actually started it with a non-obligatory, and we thank the President on making a very clear pronouncement about face masks.
Okay, now going to recent events, Typhoon Paeng. What was the effect or what happened in Cebu during Typhoon Paeng? Because I gather that you expressed annoyance, irritation of the Weather Bureau.
In fact, even today, I was a little bit worried. I was at the coastal. I was doing a 5 o'clock, I call it walkthrough. Then the rain started. And then, of course, and it's coming out to be in season. Then again, a worry has to come about the mountain barangay, about the flooding, etc., etc. Cito.
Okay, so what about your complaints about Pag-asa? Of course, you're not alone in the criticism of Pag-asa, but what in particular are you unhappy with Pag-asa?
You know Odette, remember Odette. And then, of course, we have to be more accurate and precise if possible. I know forecasting is not going to be 100%. That precisely I'm for. If and when local government unit has the money, we will make our own forecasting institution.
How would that help?
It will help because we will also be connecting definitely with reliable forecasting agencies and do what we call connectivity and sharing and interacting so that we will know exactly what's the real situation of the weather.
Okay. I recently spoke with Secretary Solidum of DOST, and I asked on how we can improve the alerts because the NDRRMC alerts, which we receive via cell phone, seem to come a few hours late. And then Ami Pamintuan, our editor-in-chief in the Philippine Star, wrote a very stinging column where she pointed out that you needed a thesaurus and a dictionary to translate all the terms being used by Pag-asa. Now, as far as your area of responsibility is concerned, do the current mode of warnings and public information help or do they confuse?
Reading all the data, it's going to be confusing, but bringing simplicity, as you've said, it's beauty. So you can just tell people, like for example, local government unit, it's raining, it's going to be hard, very, very hard. So at least you can tell, and this is going to be, and how we should be preparing. And the most important thing really, Cito, is advance. In other words, you have to put all these things together, and the technicality and the expert can tell you as they see things that are brewing, it's not going to be good, it's going to be good. So at least that will help a lot in the preparation in the local government.
Okay, but assuming all of that is fixed regarding the advance warning, the education on weather conditions and expectations, we just saw those photos from the Freeman that was showing flooding in different areas in Cebu. What are you planning to do about this situation? Because all the knowledge in the world isn't going to help Cebu if you don't have proper drainage or if your urban development is faster than what the engineering solutions can manage.
Actually, Cito, we're now pursuing a Singapore-like Cebu City. And we already have Gubat as far as Basura, Gubat as far as this flooding. And the Gubat as far as flooding is being spearheaded by our awardee, Secretary DNR like Roy Simato. He has been on top of this, and they've been breaking of properties to bring and improve the water flow. And we're looking at beyond some sophisticated approaches. And thanks also to Mr. Hansi, whom I have met on my birthday, and he was bringing that he would like to introduce certain intervention regarding the matter about flooding. And we are not going to be away from it. We are very much focusing, and there is a constant meetings on this matter, Cito.
Okay, now what sort of a system are you going to adopt? Because I was just in conversation with some local residents here in Lipa, and we recently experienced never before flooding. And I pointed out that the only thing that changed was a very big, very big, wide road that had been completed and ended up being like a funnel headed our direction. Kumbaga.
Oh, you're very right. You're very right. But I've been to Singapore, and I have noticed, and I've been very insistent of putting up a huge catchment of water, huge, that will receive the water in the river. And also, we have to be bold in coming out with camion dams that will retire the water from coming down, and definitely recovering waterways, because our waterways is being covered by buildings from the mountain. It's so wide, Cito, and I traced it by walking, and then it ended up nearing the sea. It has become a canal. And the worst, the discovery we have, the City Port Authority, there is an infrastructure development done before, and it has covered much of the exit of the water, and therefore that has to be open, really have to be open, so that the flow from above going to the outlet will be faster. But when high tide will come, we have to introduce sophistication and perhaps follow the Singapore sit-up. And the Singapore sit-up, you've been there, when high tide will come, they will close water from the sea. And then the water coming from the river, it is being received in that huge Lee Kuan Yew Park. And then the water being converted into a drinking water. I wish PPP can come in, and I was offering it to Mr. Hansi. We have a property, Block 27, can be probably on a joint venture to become a huge underground catchment converted into a drinkable water.
Okay, President Bongbong Marcos recently pointed out to I believe, a governor or a local official during Paeng that in his area, the only reason for landslides and flood was deforestation. Now, there is such a thing as urban deforestation as well, particularly for Cebu. What are you guys planning to do regarding that? Because you mentioned Singapore, and Singapore is probably one of the few places that has so many trees within the city. Pati airport nila, garden.
That's right. We are pursuing greening Cebu City, part of the Singapore like Cebu City. And that precisely, I have here a copy, Cito, which I have signed, of Plan Likay sa Landslide. And this particular document highlighted on even earthquake movement, then the so-called denuding the forest, and practically focusing now on reforestation. And in fact, the trees that has been started by the mayor before, which 3 million, I already have made a statement that we must pursue again a tree planting about a week or 2 weeks ago in honor of the mayor, Mayor Edgardo Corina Labella. And then all our agencies, Cito, we have to mean business, because we cannot allow houses in cards falling in due time. We have to make a stop. That's why this is quarrying is temporarily suspended. Areas that may probably be identified on a convergence, making it faster, identifying those that cannot be any more livable, they have to get out of the place.
Okay, we're actually showing a video, or we were showing a video of an area that was part of a landslide, if I'm not mistaken, a major landslide Now, have you guys identified the unstable areas, the red zones? We were just talking to the one of the founders of Project Noah, and he pointed out that there are so many places in the Philippines where they already did studies, and they said these are red zones, unstable areas, but people still continue building in them. What about Cebu? What's the game plan?
The game plan is suspension. The game plan, bringing the building office, the BIA park, the barangay, and all, even including the Chamber of Commerce. It has to be a bottoms up. And of course, among others, really we have to stop or moratorium on building, because 30 barangays, Cito, and that comprise the whole mountain barangays, are already being identified 10 years ago, that somehow is in danger zone, susceptible for, we call it, landslide.
Mhm.
And the landslide classification is highly moderate and low. And that cannot be ignored and should not be taken lightly. That's why we have created this special task force. Should be meeting every week, and just nearby my office, I can fit to them and discuss with them so that I will know day to day. Because yesterday, they did an ocular inspection because I've been there. I was in that landslide area. And the most important thing right now is trucks that are heavy should not pass. Rerouting has to be resorted to, and perhaps later we will have to sit down again for preemptive evacuation.
Okay, will you do to those mountain barangays what President Duterte did in Boracay, meaning forced closure of establishments, the demolition of illegally constructed buildings, etc.?
Why not? Why not? I've been telling all the time, I worry, Cito, being a Rama 100 years in the city of Cebu, my grandfather being the father of Cebu City. I cannot allow a situation which is so dismal. And I'm telling you, it is about to happen. And therefore, political will, I will provide. And I'm sorry to tell all those that may have to be out if and when identified, because there have been a lot of problems before. City Hall cannot also take out being complained to be blamed because of tax declaration being issued, and it cannot, a tax declaration alone cannot bring a house, especially if the area is considered timberland, watershed, or inalienable. That this is going to be not just an easy thing, a gargantuan task, but we
Okay.
have to work as one.
Okay, do you already have alternative sites? You were mentioning public-private projects with Hansi. Do you have alternative sites that can be developed into new townships where all of these mountain barangays can be transferred?
You're talking about right now, maybe a little lower, and we still have to do some interventions. And I've been sharing it with 15 billionaire tycoons when I went to Manila, including presented to the President, Bongbong Marcos, about the Singapore-like Cebu City.
Mhm.
And all of this will bring medium-rise building, free, medium-rise building, rented, and then medium-rise building, rent-to-own. These are all part of the pipeline. And definitely, as you've said, location has to be, we have location, but we need to have more location. And that easily, if political will and everybody will be helping, especially when we connect our coastal to South Road property. So that
Okay.
will provide an additional, what we call, area.
Okay, well, Mayor Michael Rama, I pray that the Lord will give you more than the necessary courage, the wisdom, and above all, the political will to transform Cebu City into something even better than Singapore. Maraming salamat, Mayor. God bless you, sir.
Hanggang salamat. O buhay sa bayan. God bless you too, Cito. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's Mayor Michael Rama of Cebu City, and that was a lot coming from the good mayor. And now let's close our week with this prayer blessing for our nation. Lord, thank you for this brand new day. Today, I pray for my beloved country. Show us your mercy and compassion. Bless our leaders with wisdom. Grant our country peace, unity, and prosperity. Protect our nation, and Lord, bless our families. Thank you, Lord. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us this week here on Agenda. We've had a good run. God willing, we'll see you next week. Please keep it here on One News.